Good afternoon. My name is Wendy Tavenner, and we're here to talk about communication, specifically in curriculum and curriculum development in higher education. So first question, why am I holding a stick? This stick is kind of like a Maasai talking stick. And believe it or not, a Maasai talking stick was the answer to the end of communication in our Congress. 2018, December, members of Congress were stuck on coming to a balanced budget to fund the government. One of the members of Congress ran to her office and got the Maasai talking stick. Believe it or not, this worked. So the concept is whoever has the talking stick is the only one who gets to talk. And it worked. We came to a budget agreement at least for another year. So what does that have to do with communication for us? Hopefully we don't have to bring sticks to departmental meetings, but we can learn something about it. One of the problems that we have as people in communicating is that we really want to communicate our heart to someone else, but there are many roadblocks along the way. First of which is trying to go from my heart to my head so I can figure out exactly what I'm trying to say. Then it has to go from my head to my mouth, to your ear, to your mind, to your heart. And anywhere along the way, we have the potential for difficulty. God tells us that some of the source of our quarrels is actually that we aren't getting what we want. In higher ed, this can be compounded by the fact that most of us consider ourselves experts, we have strong opinions, and we're used to being autonomous in our classrooms, small rulers of our own small kingdoms. So we want to talk about some best practices, and there's a reason that we call these best practices, because they work best if we practice them. So let's talk about 4 concepts of effective communication. The first one is that we want to practice early communication. What do we mean by early? Early means that we need to make a plan for how to communicate with each other and with stakeholders, figuring out the why before we communicate the what. In curriculum development, our team should share with each other the communication styles and the methods that work best. For some people, that's going to be text or email. For others, you may need to schedule a time to sit down over tea. We need to also come to a clear definition of what we are trying to accomplish, what the facts we're working with, why and how it's important, and what steps we're going to take as a result. The second aspect of communication is that it needs to be often. So we have scheduled and unscheduled times of communication. For scheduled times, we need to tell people on our team when and how to expect updates. We need to decide on specific times that we're going to meet and how we're going to meet collaboratively or in smaller groups. We also need to anticipate and plan for those unscheduled meetings. We need to spend time preparing for what we can't schedule. How do we do that? Often we might meet each other in the hallway and exchange an exciting idea. We're all full of ideas, but we need to have a method to make sure that we're keeping everyone in the loop so that we can all contribute and benefit from one another's ideas. The third aspect of communication is that it needs to be open. And by open, I mean 2 things. That it needs to be two-way, and we need to include mechanisms for that. Some of the mechanisms are frequent jam sessions when we can get together, making sure that all of the planners have their contact information out there for the times we need to talk. And we need to set parameters for ourselves. I'm available at this time, in this place, and this is the best way to contact me. And we need to do something called a health check. So it's kind of a start, stop, continue. What do we need to start doing? What do we need to stop doing? And what should we continue? What's working well? Another aspect of that is that we need to avoid what I call hide and seek. Bad news needs to come fast, without excuse, and perhaps with reasons, but not excuses. Lastly, we need to make sure that our communication is purposeful. And by purposeful, we mean that you need to have a goal for each meeting. In navigating those egos, opinions, and various levels of expertise, we need to make sure that what we want to accomplish is clear. We also address the common faux pas of going on too long. So in order to address this, we need to decide some markers that tell one another, A, I might be going too long, or B, I'm unclear. One of the simplest things to do is either to set a timer or come up as a group with some signals for getting to the point, or maybe going a little bit shorter. So, the last thing that we need to consider is that there are always going to be issues when communicating. Some crisis or lack of communication will arise. Some of these are steamrollers, and others are foot draggers. So, I find that one of the best things to do is to use something called stasis theory. And stasis theory says that we need to first define the problem and figure out, okay, is that where our issue is? Are we having trouble defining it? Then assessing what are the facts. What can we all agree on as the facts? The third thing is determining quality or value. What is it that is of value that we're trying to do, and what might be impeding that? And lastly, policy or implementation. Maybe that's an area that we're having difficulty in. If we can identify where in those 4 categories we have difficulty, it helps us to address them better. As Christians, all of this needs to be done with an attitude of humility. One of the concepts that Jesus teaches is being quick to come to agreement. So the idea is that we shouldn't wait for the other person to come to us. We should meet them on the way. In an ideal circumstance, we'll meet in the middle because the other person will be coming to address us. But you may need to go farther than the middle, and sometimes you need to be the one walking down the whole road. So let's review for a second. Where have we traveled? Communication needs to be early, often, open, and purposeful. Difficulties, while inevitable, can be tackled with humility and a careful application of stasis theory. Unfortunately, I don't have a Maasai stick that I can give to every one of you, but hopefully some of these practices themselves will stick.